It is overtime here again at Old Favorite Friday, talking about another incredible classic beer. And this week we have the Tumbler by Sierra Nevada. Now I've teased this beer a couple times. I got the Fanatic pack, I think it was called. I'm probably butchering that, from Sierra Nevada, where they brought back a bunch of beers that had been discontinued for one reason or another. This will be the third beer featured out of that pack, and this is the one I loved the most. This is the one that I saw immediately and said I have to get that pack because I loved Tumbler by Sierra Nevada. I love brown ales. It's one of my favorite beer styles. And this is a beer that was launched back in 2010, and they discontinued or at least stopped it as a year-round beer. I think only like 4 or 5 years afterwards. It showed up in like their fall mix pack, and they've been in and out of the lineup. Brown ales, if you're a fan of brown ales like I am, you know that these beers just tend to have a trouble out in the market. People might be intimidated by by darker beers, what have you. I don't know what it is, but I come from a lineage of craft beer people where you expect every brewery to make a great brown ale, a great wheat beer, a great West Coast style IPA, and a great porter. Another couple beers out there that are kind of traditional in the craft beer scene. And the brown ale to me is just such a beautiful marriage of the full flavored malts that you get out of the beer and drinkability, because when they're done well, there's a tinge of sweetness balanced out by the right amount of hops, ultimate complexity, and I think that this beer represents those things really, really well. Tumbler, coming from a brewery like Sierra Nevada that is known for its hop-forward beers, you would kind of expect them to go more the American brown ale route. Think of like Dogfish had the India brown ale, where your hop presence is much higher, your bitterness is much higher. That's kind of the calling card of the American brown ale, as opposed to the English brown ale, which is a little bit sweeter, a little more malt-forward. I think this strikes a really good balance. I would lean this more towards a traditional brown ale. There is a nice subtle hop bitterness to it, but I still think it leans a little bit sweeter, a little more malt forward, and I'm good with that. I like my brown ales to be a little more traditional. I think there's a place for the American style brown ale, the more bitter brown ale. There are ones that I like, but I think that if I had to prefer one style, I lean towards the English, and I think this does a good job of satisfying some of the good aspects of an American brown ale without tipping too far into that direction. You've just got great flavors here, the traditional flavors. You have toffee, you have caramel, you have hints of like dark, like baker's chocolate or cocoa powder. It's really, really nice. You get some earthy, traditional, like kind of old world hop flavor profile as well that goes on a little bit of herbaceousness. It's just a beautiful, beautiful beer. I was also surprised. I was looking back through my notes. This is the 10th beer that I have done from Sierra Nevada, and which is the most beers that we have done from any single one brewery. For a long time, I would have guessed that Bell's would be our first one to 10, because I've done so many beers from Bell's, being from Michigan and loving those beers so much. But this one, because of this mix pack that I got 3 beers from kind of in quick succession, this one actually took the crown. This is the most beers we ever done from a brewery. And I just had a little list here just to give you an idea of how much I love Sierra Nevada. And also, when we're talking about Old Favorite Friday, we're talking about not just like individual beers that are great, but breweries that do everything so well. Every beer they do is well balanced, well made, to style, really drinkable, and you're going to be really satisfied when you have that beer, even if it's not like your standout of that style. But listen, beer, Bigfoot, Celebration, Hoptimum, Narwhal, Nooner, Pale Ale, of course, one of the greatest beers of all time, Ruthless Rye, Summerfest, Torpedo, and now Tumbler. And there's other ones out there, guys. There's other great Sierra Nevada beers either in their current lineup or beers that they've retired, like Kellerweis, which I would love to get my hands on a Kellerweis. It's one of my favorite of that style of beer that produced anywhere in this country or in a more traditional, in the German brewing tradition. But another great beer from Sierra Nevada. I don't know if this beer is still available. I would imagine that these are all gone. I got this from a Costco pack. I think these are all gone by now, so I can't tell you to rush out and find it. But if you did hoard some of this, when I've been talking about this mix pack since a month or so ago when I featured the first beer, crack open a tumbler this weekend. Enjoy it. It's a perfect beer for this time of year. I always like to talk about food pairings that go with this beer. I had a pork tenderloin over the weekend, and I think a pork tenderloin would be a really, really good meat to go with this beer. I'm thinking like a rosemary, thyme, maybe like an herb encrusted pork tenderloin, and you can either go one or two ways with like the sauce to complement it. If you go with like a traditional like a mustard sauce, that goes really well with those herbs and goes really well with brown ales. Think about your classic German style, Dunkelweiss and darker beers like that go well with like pretzels and mustard and things like that. So I think that would go really well together. And then also you can go more on the sweet side because this beer is not too sweet because it has a little bit of hop balance. You can go with a kind of a maple glaze with that herb. So now you've got the herbaceousness and you've got the sweetness and really complemented because all those flavors go so well with this. We kind of heighten everything. So I think that's a great option. A couple different things you can do with that for Tumbler. And that's about it. It's a 5.5% beer. It's absolutely gorgeous. If this beer is going to go back and not be released for many years, that'll be a shame. Hopefully it'll continue, or it'll go back into being in a seasonal 12-pack of some sort. Or maybe, people like us that love this beer and went out and ran and got it, maybe they'll reintroduce it as a year-round beer or a seasonal. I'd love to see that. Great beer, great brewery, as always. Sierra Nevada, toast to you guys. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next week on Old Favorite Friday. Cheers.